what's the most essential element of making an offer? The ability to identify what's the value of a property. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you identify the value of a property? Please don't say Zillow. Do not say Zillow, because Texas is a non-disclosure state. What does that mean? We do not disclose in public record what's the sales price of a property, which means all Zestimates, 99% of Zestimates, as told by Zillow on their own site, are inaccurate in the state of Texas, and 17 of the states that are non-disclosure. So you can look up, you can also do many, many custom searches, and I'm leading to my last point, which is the element of hyper marketing. I've been a big proponent in all my real estate career of teaching people the concept of hyper marketing. What's the concept of hyper marketing? I talked about a tax list, I talked about a foreclosure list, I talked about a divorce list. Do you think there's power in reaching out to people in the topmost school district in Houston, let's say Spring Branch, who have been trying to sell their property on the MLS for over 90 days, 3 months they haven't been able to sell, who are currently behind property taxes, and at the same time are in active divorce filing? Is that a powerful list or what?
Yes.
That, my friends, is what Real Acquisitions, the power of combining these filters and doing hyper marketing is all about. But I don't want to steal the thunder away from our esteemed panel tonight. But if you have any interest in learning more about Real Acquisitions, we have the system set up right outside. Go and talk to Diana and all the staff that's outside. They'll be able to give you a live demo. Or who would like a free access to Real Acquisitions? $1,000 a year. Go there. We have a 14-day free trial. So all of you guys can create a free access, try out Real Acquisitions. In fact, tomorrow on your seat you shall see a flyer right here. It's a complete free webinar that's happening at 7 p.m. tomorrow, being run by my dear friend Ross Alex. And if you haven't heard of Ross, or do not know who Ross is the Justin Timberlake of Houston real estate. It should be on your seat. If you fill this form out, near the bottom, we'll send you an RSVP link to the event tomorrow. It's completely free to attend. We'll get a chance to show you Real Acquisitions in full-on action, and you'll also get a chance to learn 3 super strategies. I covered a few with you today, but 3 strategies and what you can find, again, completely free, on how to find super hidden real estate deals. Alright? If you're interested, fill this out, give it to Diana, who's right outside, and we shall be on our way. Alright, who's ready for the panel, guys? So I'm really excited about this panel. You know, and the biggest reason why I'm so excited about this panel, I'll tell you why. Because I've always believed that the whole purpose of real estate is to create passive income and passive wealth, multi-generational wealth. How many wholesalers in the room tonight? We love you guys, but tell you what, essentially you're building somebody else's wealth. Would you agree with that? Whose wealth are you building? People that buy and hold real estate. And that's the reason that if you have not figured out, especially in today's market, when there are, like Mike mentioned, over 1,000 lending programs specifically designed for people to enable real estate lending, especially for the purpose of buying and holding real estate. From newbies, people who have no experience, to people who have tons and tons of experience, people who have thousands of doors, all these lending programs are in place today. So I'm really excited about this panel because these are some of the things that we will be talking about tonight. So before I steal the thunder away, why don't you guys take a few minutes and just tell a little bit about yourself, who you are, how did you get started in real estate, and what are you currently doing?
My name is Haitham Fodi. I'm with Benchmark Insurance Group. I first got started in real estate when I started in insurance over 12 years ago. I would see a lot of investors come to me with all these deals, year in and year out, and my brother and I would look back and say, man, we're not doing anything with our money. So we would go to all the events, all the education, but you'll never really know until you actually make that commitment and take a chance. So we learned we talk to, this is a great source, a great power team that you can build to help you with the resources, help you with the contractors, help you with everything you need to make the right decision. And we learned as we went. We bought our first property 4 years ago, and now we have nine single-family homes. We have two shopping centers as we speak. We just built our office, and it just continues to grow. You might find yourself as a flipper one day, and the next thing you know, you own an apartment complex. So in real estate, you never know where it can take you, and especially in Houston, there's just so many good deals with our property values rising every year. And I just think it's a perfect market to help grow your wealth, which is what we're all here for at the end of the day anyway. So, I've been in it for about 4 years. I deal with all types of investors, from retail shopping centers to storage units to restaurants. I mean, you name it.
New construction?
Say again?
New construction?
New construction as well. So don't feel like, hey, money's an issue. Don't feel like, you don't have the network, because the network is here. It's just about jumping out there, taking a chance, take a risk, and learn as you go. And if you have any questions regarding insurance or just some of the things that I have, just feel free to bounce some things off me.
Awesome. We'll talk more, man. We'll pick your brain about a lot of things tonight.
Great.
Alrighty.
Can you hear me?
No.
No? Okay. My name's Mike Grangine. I've been a traditional mortgage lender going back as far as 25 years. I started in the mortgage banking industry back when we were still typing deeds of trust and notes on carbon paper, believe it or not. So I learned from a 29-year veteran, and I had the pleasure of her putting me through the paces. So it was pretty good education. Opened my own brokerage, and then from there sold that and went to work for Merrill Lynch-owned First Franklin, which was the wholesale side. So a whole new side of lending. Went through 3 different territories, came to Houston, went to Florida, went to Phoenix. Unfortunately, 2 of my bad stories where I owned property in both Orlando and Phoenix through the crash. So you can imagine how much fun that was. Anyway, I got started, the genesis for me in investing in real estate in earnest was 2015. I went to work for a company called Realty Mogul out of California, and their quest was to become a lender between the banks and between hard money, but to use technology to disrupt it. Unfortunately, they were harder to work with than a bank, priced worse than hard money lending, and they shut the division down after we went back and said, here's all the things you need to do. So that led to my quest now. I've been working in lending, like I said, for 25 years, and investing in real estate, from flipping to owning investment properties. I kind of went on a personal quest of determining how do you find the best loan program that's out there for all the different scenarios that may fit, from the full doc borrower from W-2 to the bank statement borrower who's self-employed, because I've been self-employed for many years of my life, to the different programs that exist. That was the genesis for the Fast House Funding Loan Exchange, and that's, I guess, why I'm on the panel here tonight, to discuss all those different, lessons from the quest. So,
All righty. Thank you, Mike.
Does it come on?
Yeah.
Can I?
Yes.
I think we can hear you regardless, but yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Melissa Berry, and my husband and I have Investor Loan Source. We actually started in real estate in 2007, not really by choice, but because of the financial crash, we actually lost our other business. So if you think that you're starting out with nothing, just be okay with that, because we started out with less than nothing and have done a variety of things since then. So we have a large portfolio, so we rent and manage our own houses. We manage for other folks as well. And if anybody knows Tom, he's always got to find something else to do. So I stay busy. But yeah, so I just want you to think about, if you feel like you don't really have the tools necessary, don't worry about it. You'll learn. Real estate is awesome, and it'll take you places you never thought it would take you. And that's kind of where we've started from.
Thank you, Melissa.
Tom and Melissa are like 3rd or 4th degree black belts in real estate. So if you could just hang out with them like we're trying to, you'll learn a lot. Sylvia and I were turning 59 and a half a couple years ago.
No.
Yeah, well, I was, she wasn't. And we realized we had zero game plan for being retired, and we had an awakening. And when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. We started going to a couple real estate meetings, and one day it just gelled. We went all in, signed up, took the course, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about, how you can too. And it's all about just man up, do what you got to do. You know what you got to do. You just got to do it. And then you find some really smart people. And, you know, after a while we ended up with Hatham for our insurance agent.
Really smart.
Yeah. You learn as you go how to scale the business. AG was saying, well, Patrick, talk a little bit about that. Well, when you get to house number 10, and we had a hard money loan with Jet Lending, and then realized we couldn't get another loan because our first home, our personal home counted as home one. Oh, you scramble in a religious fast lane. And so we'll talk about that too.
So that's a great segue into essentially getting started. The journey of any a regular investor who does not come with a silver spoon in his mouth is essentially what you guys went through. How do you go from modest means to establishing on your way to 18, 19, 20 plus properties in days and years to come? So talk about the beginnings of the journey. I know you talked about how you certainly had an oops moment, but what happened next? What was the immediate first action item that you took to get started in the process of buying single-family rental properties?
We go, there's a guy talking about how he's got 45 homes. You got 45 homes? How'd you do that? And he said, I do hard money loans. Fix them, refinance them, get permanent financing, and I'm all in. Well, how much money did you take to get 54 homes? And he knew the answer, like $157,000. Well, when you're over 55, there's a chance you have a pretty good IRA or some kind of money saved. So we found a home that was, what was the first home?
We bought the first house for around $80,000.
It was $78,000.
$78,000, and then we have a hard money lend to
Rehab it.
rehab it.
Yeah, it's like $16,000 or $17,000 for the rehab.
So the whole thing we were in with around $7,000
Well,
with a double closing.
yeah, so the home goes up, and it's worth $130, and you get 75 cents to the dollar at the time, I think, maybe it was 70. But anyway, when we subtracted the math all in, it was like $7,800 out of our pocket to pick up a home that was $876 a month. At the time, it was 4.25% rate. And we turned it around, and there were two other homes for rent on the same street. $1,200 something was what they were asking, and we got how much?
$1,250.
$1,250. So $1,250. So we're cash flowing just under $400, $375 a month, kind of. And well, that's how it starts.
And now the house is worth around $160,000.
And it rents for how much now?
$1,400.
So we'll come back and talk about scale, but essentially each of you guys represent an area of challenge for almost everybody in this room. Insurance, lending, property management, and obviously scale. You've done many things, Melissa, you and Tom. But essentially, the reason I requested you was to talk about your tips on property management. I know you blew my mind once when you talked about that. And of course, you guys, as a representative of somebody who can establish zero to nothing in a matter of time. So talk, if you would, on this one specific topic, and then we'll just ask you guys to talk about that one little thing, which is, how did you overcome the first fear of making that first deal work? How did you overcome that? Because the first action is always, I got to know. How many people are in this room, in this category, where they got to know the answer to freaking everything? Might as well turn around and go back home tonight, guys. You're in business. In business, we always operate in what I like to call the 80% zone. Because you, at best, on the best day of your business, will know 80% fact. 20% will always be hazy. 20% will always be risk. 20% will always be unknown. So talk about that first step that you guys took.
So I'm thinking for most of the people here, it's a little bit fear the money, but for us it wasn't really there. I think the hard part for me was not knowing how to run the fix-up part long distance, because it's about half an hour from the house. I got a day job. My wife is a little bit uncomfortable at the time on house number 1. She's fluently bilingual in construction now. But at the time, it was finding a team, a construction guy, and we found a group that through one of these meetings, where they're going to say, hey, we'll do it all. They bid it, they walked their talk, they kept the bid, there weren't extras, and it was a predictable formula for moving forward. And you know, when you take out all the uncertainties, then it's just plug it in like Lego, you know, and you do it on paper before you spend the first dollar. You know, you got an option to buy, and you got a quote, and if you want to get an inspector, an inspection, and you just add it up, allow some kind of contingency of overage of some kind, and after you do the first one, no. I bought my first home as a bachelor when I was 26 years old. An amazing thing happened right after I bought it. I became better looking. Right after you do that first home, you become a lot more cool. You know?
Awesome, guys. Same question to you guys before we get into your area of specialty. That very first deal that you did, if you remember that, how was it like? How did you overcome that first mental challenge? Most of the time it's mental, right? How did you overcome that mental, can I do this?
Well, Tom and I started out wholesaling, so we knew as soon as we could figure out the money part, we wanted to have rentals. He's had them before, so we just knew we wanted to go that step. So it was just figuring out the money. And because we buy, most of our houses are less than 100,000, we figured out we could use private lenders and still cash flow. So once we figured that out, we just started buying.
Using private loans.
Yep, and we bought, and we're still buying, so.
How about you, Mike?
So for me, the first initial one was actually done in a partnership. That was kind of the one that overcame fear, because I was one of those people that needed to know everything. You can go back to 20 years in Phoenix, and I'd kind of gotten mentored by a gentleman who at the time was doing fix and flip, which was unheard of. I mean, I remember I lived in a square box for a long time in formal lending. Anyway, long story short is, what got me out was there was another person, Misery Loves Company. So I partnered with an appraiser friend of mine. We decided to jump in and
That's a deadly combination, an appraiser and a mortgage broker.
well, we figured we had it all cornered, right? He had the valuation piece,
Zero
I had the
risk.
money piece, right? None of us knew how to fix it. But we figured it out and got through it, and it was pretty successful. And so
Guess what? If these guys can do it, come on. So, did you guys make money? Lose your shorts?
absolutely, no, we made money. We did 3 deals in the first probably 8 or 9 months. We liked it so much we tried to scale it up and ramp it up. We don't buy like y'all do. And lately I've gotten rid of all the property and put all my eggs into the basket of the Fast House Exchange and working on kind of getting back to buying some real estate. So
Awesome. How about you, Mr. Fody?
My first deal was a bit of an odd one, you know, and these type of deals don't come around often. It was actually a property that in Kingwood that was a fire. I used to get inside deals on, you know, major distressed homes that either had fire damage or water damages from a company called Serpro. So they called me out. I talked to the owner. You know, he was haggling with me. He wanted 40, he wanted 50. Ended up talking him down to 34,000 for the property as is. Once you have that construction crew, once you have that backing, you're I guess a little confident in certain things that other people aren't. So most people wouldn't know what to do in a fire situation. We bought that house for 34,000 as is. We were able to use a lot of the framing. You know, we re-bricked obviously. We put about, I want to say 98 to 110,000 roughly. We started construction. We got done in about 5 to 6 months, and the neighbor approached us and said his daughter was graduating from college and wanted to buy a house right next to his, and he offered us $260,000. So we ended up making, and again, that's a layup deal, those don't come often, but that's what kickstarted us. Because obviously I wanted, you know, you want to make money to go out and start investing, and it's hard to just throw your own money out there sometimes. And then, you know, talking to everyone about how they've done it and how they invested $7,300 and now they have over 20, 30 homes. You know, that's what really got me started in it. And yeah, it was a little lucky. We made a ton of money to buy our next deal, and now we have, you know, quite a few rentals and then got into the commercial side. So that's really what jump started us. That's how we got into it. So it really wasn't a major risk at the time for the 34,000, but we learned a lot along the way, and we knew that investing was the way to go, and we want to just, you know, either flip two and hold one, but holding is the way to go.
Awesome.
For us.
It's great, man. Great stories. I'll share my perspective. My wife and I got started in the single-family rental business in 2011. In fact, she's here somewhere, along with my 7-year-old, 8-year-old, and then I guess they stepped out. So between 2012 and 2014, my wife and I purchased about 87 single-family, actually 87 doors in the Houston market. We went crazy, and I'll give you the story of how we bought those homes as this night progresses. But I want to talk to you briefly about the similar story to these guys, which is that very first home. How did that really happen? So let's talk about 3 practical challenges that I had, and I hope you guys will be able to share some light on tonight, which is number 1, lead generation, number 2, evaluation of the property, and number 3, money, finding the money to buy those homes. So money, I understand, we'll be getting into tremendously. But lead generation. Now, obviously, in my case, we've had real acquisitions since 2009. At the same time, I saw deals flying left and right through REALAC and people buying. But when you've been providing fans to the gold diggers for so long, sometimes you want to dig for yourself. Specifically in our case, here's what we decided to do. What we decided to do was start looking at neighborhoods where the rent to purchase ratio was the highest. Who can explain to me what that means? Any data nerds in the room?
More people are renters than buyers.
Rent to purchase ratio essentially means that can I buy today, let's say a market like Houston, can I buy today a home that's market appraised at $100,000 and rents for $1,000 a month? Can I do that? Can I buy in another part of town a home that's market appraised at $100,000 and rents for $1,100?
Sure.
Can I do that?
I'll do it.
Which has a better rental yield? The second one. So that's what our mission became. Our mission became in identifying those neighborhoods. And mind you guys, these are always niche, very small neighborhoods. These neighborhoods are never going to be like large swaths like Katy or Copperfield or Heights. They'll always be very small pockets, 2,000, 3,000 homes, subdivisions, where these ratios will exist. So we became absolutely dead serious about identifying those neighborhoods where we could focus and market in those neighborhoods and buy some very nice rental deals. That was our beginning of identifying lead generation mechanisms. Secondly, how do you evaluate what the value of a property is? Now, sounds lovely to go into a software like Real Acquisitions and determine the comps. But the problem is, if you've never made an offer in your life before, making that first offer is always a challenge, especially if you're not represented by an agent. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so can you shed some light on when you were new? I know right now you guys are absolutely seasoned pros, but when you were new, and whoever wants to take this question can, how did you get started about making your offers?
You know, after my first property, because the first one was I was dealing directly with the homeowner. After that, I would say I'm a bit of a lowballer, and I found out quickly that you know you're gonna have to be aggressive too if it's a property that you see value in, because if there is value there, chances are there's other investors that are willing to take a chance out there. So I would send out bids and send out offers, and you know they would be turned down, or somebody would come out bid me as well. So my approach became a little bit more aggressive on deals that I was just 100% certain. And again, in terms of doing that, you need to have the right contractors in place and know what your construction costs are going to be. That's half the battle. And once we felt like we mastered that, it was easy to make offers that we were comfortable with and willing to go down with. But to say I haven't lost on a deal, I have lost on a deal. There's a deal that I'm in right now that I bought in 3rd Ward off of Truxillo. Got into, investors approach me all the time, and I was kind of bailing him out. And here we are, we got $300,000 tied up into this house, and had a seller in place, and he backed out because of the neighborhood. So now we're renting it out and wait till the neighborhood turns for the better, and then we'll sell it. So again, I'm not an expert in every facet of it, but I know what to look for.
Okay, this is, guys, payback time. He's open for lowball offers in the house.
I'm ready.
Anyone else wants to take that question?
Instinctively, you kind of know a good deal. I mean, you do. And you can ask 3 or 4 questions from a couple of people. It confirms your knowledge that it's a pretty good deal. But you really need an exit strategy every single time you buy a home. So when you're buying the home, you think, okay, well, I've got 6% commissions and title policy and $1,000 worth of fix-up if I'm lucky, and so you put a dollar value to what it's going to take to sell. And when we were buying our homes, we never thought about flipping them, because I thought, well, I can't compete with all the guys that are flipping homes, so we just told everybody in the room, I'll pay more. Well, I'll pay more. And instead of, he's got a really good program. I mean, it's really smart. We just aren't wholesalers, but it's a really good program. I mean, it's brilliant. But I remember being in one of the classes early, and I said, I'll just pay you guys whatever you wholesalers want. I don't care if it makes sense. And working backwards, you got to give yourself, when you're done thinking, okay, this is my profit, add another $10,000 and just don't break that rule. If you're staying in our case under $100,000 homes.
Okay, awesome. Alrighty, so here's the deal part, here's the evaluation part. Let's get on to, now that you found the deal, identifying contractors. And I know all of you guys have perspectives there. So do you want to take the lead there, Melissa? Is that identifying or finding the right
It's
contractor?
probably the hardest thing, I think, is finding a good contractor. And you're gonna go through a lot of them. I mean, we went through a lot until we got to the point where we could hire somebody and keep them on staff. Once you get to that point, then it's gonna be a lot easier and a lot more profitable. But you're just gonna have to weed through. I mean, it's tough out there.
Okay, I need more though. I need you guys to give these guys some practical tips. Practical tips on finding the right contractors.
When you're in the blue collar industry like construction, you are going to have a high turnover rate. Our biggest thing was finding the right project manager. I have a construction company as well, so like she said, I wanted to start employing these guys to keep them busy year round, whether it was for our deals or somebody else's deals. And that's the trick, right? I mean, you can save more on construction by hiring your own guys, and subbing out the business yourself. So, make sure that they're not slapping an invoice and throwing totals and saying this is what the kitchen costs for a remodel. You want line, item, detail of what the scope is, because you cannot hold them to anything. Because what happens in a case like this is they come back and say, oh, well, this happened and now I need $4,000 more. Oh, and this happened, and there's nothing ironed out. So my biggest advice to you would be make sure that they're providing a detailed scope from wiring to outlet cover plates to painting the baseboards, whatever it is, everything needs to have a cost, and nothing should be sunk. When you do that, you kind of prevent yourself from being taken advantage of, because when they see that you're new in construction or know nothing about construction, which most of us don't, then they're going to take advantage of you. It's the world of construction. But once you find that person, once you find the right contractor that you can trust, that you've negotiated on a volume basis, that hey, we're going to do a lot of deals together, so give me that kind of pricing. Once you get there, it makes things that much easier. But always continue to look for more. So just never stop at one. Continue to try to broaden your network in that aspect.
So, hold on to the questions, guys. We'll come back and take questions together. But thanks, though. Anything else, guys?
I was just gonna mention, you're probably not a vendor here, but Fast Track Remodeling.
They do a great job.
If you're new and you want to get, an opinion,
Yeah, Fast Track Remodeling
I would
does a great
say,
job.
get with them and have them look at your project.
Okay, let me share a few couple practical tips with you guys. Number one, if you're new in the business, learn the actual cost of construction yourself. Learn how much does it cost to do sheetrock. Learn how much does it cost to replace a roof. Learn construction terminology like square. How do you measure brick in thousands? How do you measure paint? How much paint does it take? How much square feet does 1 quart of paint cover? Yada, yada, yada. Sounds intimidating, but that's the one biggest problem in our industry today. I say that a lot. Construction and real estate is a trade, but what have we reduced this business to? We've reduced real estate to a 2-day boot camp. People believe they can go to a 2-day boot camp and learn how to become a real estate investor. I challenge them, guys. Get back to the basics and learn some of these basic concepts. And it really doesn't take that long, because there are essentially 58 line items when it comes to construction. People in construction companies will probably concur with me. And they're itemized national codes. They're just standardized across the United States about what these codes are. And essentially all you need to know is what are the labor and material costs of these 58 line items. It's essentially as simple as that. In fact, for those of you who are Real Acquisitions Pro members, there's a completely free class in your portal today that you can access, which is called Cost of Construction, which goes through all of these line items one by one by one by one. Learn these trades. If you do not know these pricing, hire a contractor to walk the job sites with you. Don't be cheap. Don't make him false promises. If you give me a bid, I'll hire you. Don't do that. So listen, I have no intentions of hiring you, but I'll pay you $150 or whatever for you to write me a line item estimate of what it'll take me to fix this property. That's how you, like Haitham very correctly said, don't tell me $5,000 job for the living room. Tell me, okay, how much for replacing the baseboard? How much for the door handles? How much for the hinges? How much for the doors? How much for the electrical? Line item by line item by line item. That's what you want to develop your skill sets on. Alrighty? Moving on. Any more to add on the rehabbing?
There are softwares out there that allow you to understand pricing. There's a software called Xactimate. This is what insurance companies use to calculate remodeling after a fire or water damage. Okay, so it stays with industry pricing. If there's inflation due to hurricanes, obviously sheetrock has gone up, obviously labor has gone up. All that is calculated into that system. Now, it's very detailed, very, very complex sometimes, maybe hard to use. Maybe find a contractor that does use it. Also, know your strengths. If you're not a great communicator, and in the blue collar industry, when you're dealing, with Hispanics and other, other people of backgrounds, you need to have somebody to communicate what you want done in the most respectful manner. Because a lot of these guys don't know how to bid jobs. They underbid a job and then they realize halfway in that I'm not making any money, so they just walk from your job with half of your money. So, being able to communicate, being reasonable with these folks, understanding the pricing like AG says, you can kind of know what a good deal, and you don't want to hit home runs on these guys because they'll never use you again. Okay, and it works both ways. You want them to continue work for you as they want to continue work for you as well. So I think that's the best approach.
Great point, guys. Alrighty, let's open up for questions before we move on to the next stage. Any questions from the? Go ahead, sir.
So when you get, where you have, the best thing would be to have your 5 guys in the truck, that works for you and knows your business, knows how fast you want to do it. When do you get to that? How many properties do you get to that point?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question is, when do you get to having your own crew, your own guys that do work for you,
Okay, general rule of thumb for me is, for construction, if you're doing a ton of work, it's going to cost about $1,000 a day, okay? And we try to knock projects out in 30 days, depending on what you're doing, of course. If it's minor touch-ups, you can do that right away, okay? You can find trade guys at Home Depot. You can find different networking groups on Facebook to help you find a contractor. You can start right away. Obviously, as you grow, you want to get there. If you're in the flipping business, it's more likely that you'll get that crew quicker. But if you're a buy and hold guy, not so much. So it's something you don't have to wait for. It's just negotiating.
And I understand that. I'm just saying for the people on the panel that or have a crew that works with them, that is not a private construction guy, like
Okay.
you said, somebody.
Right.
How many doors did it take you to have your own crew?
That makes sense.
I think he said $1,000 a day. If his expenses hit about $1,000.
Well, we started buying multifamily.
Oh, I see.
So when we started buying multifamily, then we could afford to have a full-time crew.
Right, but at what point in time, so the
We had
question,
about 30 doors.
so until you had 30 doors is where you started having your own crew,
Yeah.
working your properties.
Right.
Good question. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
A detail on that question.
Here you go.
So a detail on that specific question that he just asked you, you just stated that you had 30 doors before you had your own crew. Who are the members of your crew? What does your crew consist of?
Well, it was just our main guy, and he'd have a helper in the beginning. And then because we were buying multifamily and single family, so as we needed to bring on more people, he would bring on more guys. So I think at the very end, before we sold our multifamily, I think he had himself and 5 other guys. But at that point, we had 400 units. So you just have to decide what's going to work for you.
And many a times, based on the grade and the quality of the properties, you will be able to identify which are the items that are constantly needing work.
Right.
Like in my case, the biggest expenses have traditionally been plumbing and HVAC.
Yes.
So if I can outsource or minimize those costs, that immediately answers the question themselves.
Realistically, you can't keep a crew busy if there's no work. You know what I mean? And it's just going to cost you money. So either you're doing a lot of projects throughout the year to keep these guys busy, or you just have a handyman who you're paying, a day rate to get these things done. Typically, that's for your sheetrock, your paint, your finishes work like trim, baseboards, crown molding, things like that. And then you'll find a granite guy along the way. You'll find somebody to do your cabinets for cheap. You'll piece all that together, and before you know it, you have a crew that can get a job done fairly quickly within the first 3 deals that you do.
You can always say, hey, I'm thinking about changing my insurance over to Benchmark. By the way, I need a roofer.
Got it. We got it.
I like that. Alrighty.
I have another question, and that is in regards to the software. What are the different software packages that you all might recommend for a beginner? You just mentioned due
Xactimate.
diligence packaging for that.
Mhm.
What about tracking the jobs and
That's all on you personally. Now, these crews are only going to be as good as you allow them to be. You have to manage them. If you're not going to manage them, you need to find somebody to do that. They're going to work as little as possible as you allow them to. Okay? Now, if you're on top of them, they'll get the job done. They'll do what you want them to do in a timely manner. But if you just feel like, hey, I'm going to hire these guys and I'll come back in a month, you are going to end up paying double.
well, I'm talking about software that's tracking multiple projects.
Software to track multiple projects.
Yeah, you were
So I'm
essentially talking about
software.
project management software.
Yeah, I'm talking about software programs that are helpful in tracking and managing for beginners. So
The-
you mentioned the due diligence program that the project.
Xactimate, yeah, insurance,
Yeah,
yeah.
Xactimate,
We use a product called Builder Trend.
There you go.
Builder Trend, okay.
Now, I will tell you though, is that for jobs that are less than $25,000, $30,000, it doesn't make sense. A typical construction volume for most seasoned investors, even at a smallest scale, will run at about $7,500 to $8,000 a week. That's a typical construction volume. So anything below that is just, you're hiring Jose from Home Depot who's banging walls. But a professional job typically runs about $7,500 to $8,000 a week. And for 2-week, 3-week, 4-week type jobs, it does not make sense to get a software. But when you start getting in a little more expensive stuff, like we do $2 million construction projects, getting a professional tracking software definitely makes sense. Otherwise, you're just overcomplicating the process, in my opinion.
If you're a new investor, you don't want to be doing major rehabs. You want to pick something that can get done in 3 weeks because you're small, you're poor, you got no cash flow. So you pick something where you're not replacing cabinets. You maybe will go as far as the countertops to finish, and you get some guy who works at the apartment complex that does the cleanup when people move out and figure out a way to get that guy to work for you on the side.
So talk about that, because I didn't even have that in my list of questions. Talk about picking your projects. What kind of projects would you see that you're like, you know what, I don't even touch that dude?
So when you take the beginner class at all the beginner class places, like keep it affordable. Our target was a guy who could be in an apartment or could rent a home. So we thought, well, if our rents were $1,200 or $1,300, that could be anybody in town. So we bought the little homes that, when all the math worked out, they were going to rent for $1,200, $1,300 a month. So working backwards, and when Tom was brilliant. Why would you buy a $100,000 home when you buy a $50,000 home? That was brilliant, you know? And because they rent for $900 or $1,000 still, you know? But in our case, our contractor kind of takes 3 weeks to do the finish based on the homes we buy. And the cost was kind of predictable. It's always fix some cornice, paint the outside, you know. And we used Tom's brother,
Elijah.
Yeah, Elijah, for our first 2 homes, you know. And I forget how they marketed
It's
it,
a different Tom,
but
though.
it was good enough. Yeah, I said Tom Harris, bro. You know, but you don't have to find the best deal. You just get a deal, and we justified it. If I paid too much for something, I just rent it 1 more month. You know, we're not living on the cash flow. We're gambling on the appreciation. I remember one guy, our realtor, when we finished up our first rehab, he said, "Hey, you know, I can sell that for like $125, $127." I thought, no, we're going to rent it. And we rented that one with the pool. What did it rent for?
$1,200.
$1,200. We kept it for 3 years. The guy moved out, fixed it up for another $8,000, rented again for like $1,300. That guy moved out, and we sold it for $177,000 with multiple offers. It was way better to hold on to it, let the 6, 7, 8, and the $120,000 homes, they're appreciating 8% in this town. The biggest transfer of wealth in Houston occurred 6 years ago, and it's happening again now after Harvey. Yeah. You know, you just got to get in on that. You know, you can buy your second favorite home in your third favorite neighborhood, but as long as you can get in and out in a month, and your contractor's predictably $15,000 or $16,000, that's good math.
Who can tell me how much real estate was sold on the MLS last month? Single family. Listen to this, guys. $3 billion.
Oh, and MLS.
$3 billion of real estate was sold. And by the way, was that a special month? No, that's the usual regular month in the Houston market. So if you're not understanding what these guys are talking about, it is the amount of transactioneering that happens just on the MLS is ridiculous. Now here's another stat that you guys may or may not know about. Combined, this $3 billion of real estate represents, give or take, about $7,000 to $8,000 sales. About 7,000 to 8,000 sales of real estate. Single family, okay? Did you know how many deeds were filed last month in Harris County alone? What do you guess? How many deeds were filed in Harris County last month? What's that? 22,000 deeds were filed in Harris County last month. Now granted, all of those deeds, by the way, when I say how many deeds were filed, who can explain what that means? Transfer of ownership happened, right? Now, granted, all of this transfer of ownership may not necessarily be legitimate sales. There may be husband transferring to wife, yada yada yada, trust, movement, but still, there is almost 3 to 4 times as much transactioneering happening right here, right under your noses in this town. Forget about the national real estate volume. That much amount of wealth is right there, ready to be created and captured. So it's crazy numbers in town, man. So thank you for that. Any more perspectives on identifying what kind of property to buy, what kind of property to not buy? And I know commercial is a whole different beast,
Right.
multifamily is a whole different beast. So let's talk in the context of single family.
you know, in single family, I just don't think there is a bad buy. You know, you might hear that.
I can sell you some.
Yeah, right. But learn the process. You know, if you have to lose money on your first deal, it's a tax write-off anyway. But you're going to learn a ton. You're going to learn which contractors you're not going to deal with. You're going to learn which HVAC guy you're going to deal with. You're going to learn, you know, what areas of town you want to buy from. You know, I bought a house for $50,000 before. You know, and it turned out to be a great deal because I got, you know, $900 a month out of that place. You know, so what some people perceive as a bad deal might be a great deal to you. You know, it's just about who you ask and what they've done. But with that being said, just make that deal happen and find out on your own.
Any more perspectives, guys, on what single family, what are the, I know everybody criteria is different, right? But what are some of the considerations to think about? When you're saying, this is the kind of house I want to buy, this is the kind of house that I don't want to buy.
I would say if you're gonna buy rentals, this is something we learned over the past 11 years, is buy them within a 30-minute radius of where you live, if you're gonna manage them yourselves. If you buy, you know, outside that radius, you're gonna hate that property. So that's a tip that we learned the hard way, because we had rental properties everywhere. And now we've consolidated them down to about, if my maintenance man can't get there within 30 minutes, then you're not gonna service that property the way it needs to be.
Okay, a few practical tips from my side. Think of something called a rent range. Most people think of, I want to buy a property, it's $50,000, $75,000, $125,000. But most people don't think of your rent range represents what kind of a tenant you're going to be dealing with. I've heard of people, and God bless you guys, who can buy homes at $50,000 that rent for $900,000. As far as I'm concerned, I bought a few of those homes as a part of my initial purchase, and guess what? I have never been successful collecting rent from those people.
It's true.
It's true. And the reality is this. As a person, as a business, you have a certain skill set. And that skill set, you are either going to transcend and teach to your staff, or you need to hire staff that knows how to manage that kind of asset class or property class. I did not. I wanted to deal with an asset class or a rent range where I could go in without the risk of getting shot. Seriously. And I could go in and knock on I don't have to knock on the door and says, dude, where's the rent? I didn't want to deal with that asset class. So my representation was that I wanted to rent properties in the $1,400 to $1,800 rent range. And $1,400 to $1,800 rent range at that time, now it's gone up. Rents have been increasing in Houston consistently at 11%, outpacing anything else. But when I got started, when I got wised up, $1,400 to $1,800 was a rent range that represented to me a business model that I could run, I could scale, I could teach, I could hire a property management around. And that represented to me the upper echelon, or think of it like the cream of the crop of the blue collar. That's not the guy who's laying foundation, but that's the guy who's probably a teacher. He's not the guy who's going to work, who's working security, but he's the guy who's probably a superintendent at a warehouse. So upper echelon of the blue collar represented to me, essentially, that rent range where I was very comfortable in collecting rent in. And again, once I knew my rent range, what did I look for? I said that in the first stage. Where can I get the cheapest price in that rent range? Where can I get the cheapest price, the cheapest property in that rent range? That became our acquisition strategy.
Where do you see that price point at, AG?
What do you mean?
So for $1,400 to $1,800, how much? What's the lowest I can get a house like that for?
For $1,400 right now, if you're buying, in my opinion, if you're buying in neighborhoods where the gross yield is less than 14%, in today's market you're paying too much. Gross yield, we try to stay gross yield. Essentially, you take your gross rent. I don't want to be buying properties where the gross yield is anything less than 14%. Now, will you find properties where the gross yield, or essentially your rent, is excessively good? Meaning, $50,000 property that rents for $1,200. I'm very scared of those too, because those are bubbles. Those are where something special has happened in some special neighborhood like oil or some super employer is coming for some time, and the market's going to get adjusted very quickly, in my opinion. Okay, any questions on that, guys? Rent range, scale of property, what to buy, what do you guys think? Mark Fantak.
Your software, is there a way to use your software to identify this kind of thing you're talking about?
Yes, sir, you can. You can right now go in and say, show me properties that are renting between $1,200 and $1,400, and you can put in a median sales price or distresses.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Can you step back to the construction part
Okay.
and talk about payment, how you control payment to the contractors, et cetera?
Bill, I don't know if that's relevant to the context of rentals, but okay, maybe if you guys have a quick
Well, I'm talking
perspective.
about in the construction process.
He's saying how would he pay his contractor? What's a good way to pay him?
Okay.
What I do, and I've had to restructure this a couple times, I do 30%, 30%, and 10% upon completion. Because I've had some investors at the end where I've done the 33, and then I can't get my last 33. So basically, I'll give him 30% upfront for material and to start the work. When he's about 60% complete, I'll give him another draw. And when he's at the wee end, because the last 10% takes 50% of the time usually. I'll give him that last 30%, and upon all the touch-ups and punch list items, I'll give him his final 10. So I do 4 draws. You can do 25-25 if you like, but don't kill yourself by giving them all the money up front because
Or 50-50.
or 50-50 because you may not see that again.
Some of the contractors are like my kids. You give them an allowance and all of a sudden they're eating ramen noodles at the end of the month because they ran out of money. A lot of the contractors, they'll give you, the line item thing is perfect, and even though you say they're going 25-25 or 30-30, whatever the formula is, wherever they're on that line item, you're safe.
Right.
You can pay up to that point. I mean, we're not there to beat him up because he's imperfect, we're all imperfect. No.
That's a great point. And remember this, guys, in rehab, no matter how small or how big, the biggest challenge is always the last mile.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is good till the last 2 things that need to be done. So whatever processes you have in your business in rehabbing, learn how to manage that last mile. That's where maximum F-ups happen. People just don't want to come and finish up.
Just one point there from a lending perspective, we're going to reimburse you on the line item that's complete from a draw standpoint, right? We're not fronting money. It's going to be done on the completed work. And so when somebody comes in to inspect, they're checking the box. Is it complete? Is it complete? Is it complete? Then we can reimburse you for that. So if you stuck to that as your game plan, you'd probably be safe.
In that thought process, do you put anything up in the front for materials?
From a lending perspective, there might be some out there on a very much relationship basis, but I don't think you're going to find many that will.
Okay.
Or finding a contractor who's financially stable to front that part of the job.
Great point. So let's stay with you, Mike. So now that they've found the property, they've identified the contractor, they've seen the scope of work. Let's get in the world of lending.
Okay.
So if you can, build a little bit about the history of Fast House Exchange. I love the concept of the fact that don't restrict yourself to one lender with all this sleuth of money flowing the market space right now.
Right.
What are the options available? So if you can address that.
So, if you've been paying attention, there's a lot of money flowing from Wall Street now into this business from a lending perspective. From the hard money or the temporary or acquisition funds, renovation funds, to the permanent type of financing that's available. So in that regard, that means that there's a lot more availability of cash to do those types of things. Lenders that are working on a national basis. And maybe what I would say that probably comes with that is investor experience brings rewards. Those people are typically, the larger investment or the larger lenders that are institutional are looking for people that have lots of experience, right? In other words, they'll target people that have done 10 to 15 flips in the last 24 months or 10 to 15 acquisitions and then put it into their rental portfolio. For those people, they'll work on a line of credit, a guided line of credit. Basically, it's extended where you buy a house, if the house fits the portfolio, you have a line of credit up to $10 million. Some of them will work on some vanishing fees or lowering fees, as you go. So there's different programs. They're very different programs in terms of loan to cost, loan to value, whether it's a flip, whether it's a purchase to put into your rental portfolio. I'm going to stop with that and just say one thing. One of the things that the distinguished speaker had said, exit strategy, exit strategy, exit strategy. One of the hardest things to do, and I actually got caught on one of my own properties this way, is if you don't have your exit strategy mapped out before you go in, from a lending perspective, it's awfully hard to come in and save the day if we weren't part of that strategy from the beginning. Okay, so just as a word to the wise there is that, whatever your exit strategy is, make sure that you're talking to your lender partner, whether it's, the Fast House funding model or some other lender, just make sure that they're involved in that process. So exit strategy is important.
So let's stay borrower. And how many of you guys do not understand the basic concept of hard money? Okay, can you shed a little bit of light on what is hard money?
So hard money basically allows
Essentially, and if you will, the thought being, build a concept for these guys, for these folks, as the experience level of the investor grows. What's the corresponding nature of the lending programs that open up for people?
Right. So there are investing programs for people with experience, no experience, all the way through. Easiest way to maybe describe hard money is to give an illustration, if you'll let me, right? So let's say you're comparing a house that at the end of the day after it's renovated is worth $100,000. So if you were to purchase it for $100,000, it's rent ready, it's done, okay? In that environment, you're likely going to have to come in with a down payment of, let's say, 15 to 20% at a minimum based on programs that are out there today. Let's say 20, because that's probably what's more average, right? So in that case where you bought that property for $100,000 that was rent ready, you had a $20,000 down payment. Let's flip the script a little bit and talk about how hard money works. Is that let's say that you now purchased a house that will be worth $100,000. You bought it for $50,000 and it needed $25,000 worth of work. Total cost on that was $75,000, right? In that case, hard money would allow you to acquire the property, pay the $50,000 purchase price, and then also hold back or reimburse the $25,000 worth of renovations that are needed. At the end of the day, the property's still worth $100,000, right? So if you're going to hold it as an investor, you turn around and refinance that into a permanent loan at a $75,000 loan. My question to you is, what was the down payment on that loan? It's a trick question. It's zero. That's what hard money does for you, is it leverages your ability to extend to multiple properties and be able to purchase a house with $7,800
Quickly at that.
And quickly at that. Yeah, because hard money does work fast.
Close in a week,
Yeah, 5 to 10 days,
Yeah.
sometimes, or less.
And there are tons and tons and tons of phenomenal, great hardware lenders, Tom and Melissa, and many great, phenomenal people in town, nationwide now, that provide access to hard money. Okay, so you're brand new. One of the other reasons why I'll say it's a great idea to use a hard money lender, and I think you guys have been through that, Patrick, which is they provide a second set of eyes. Second set of eyes that check your numbers and make sure that you're following, in so many words, a process versus just winging it. Would you agree with that?
They're not going to let you make a mistake. They don't want to take the home back. And if you're really chicken, and we were on one, do you have the name of a good contractor we should be using? And he said, yeah, we took the guy's name and we used him. I mean, they're not going to let you be failures because they want their money back.
No. And a long time ago, and I think y'all would speak to this too, the lending that you guys do is very much asset-based, and so you're very, very critical of what that property value would be, right? And so that's why hard money works. You do have that second set of eyes. They're not going to give you a loan on a property that isn't going to work, or you're going to have to come up with more money to make it work, right? And it has changed to some degree. It's a little less hard from some of the institutional lenders. There may not be as much asset base as much as they're going to look at your personal financials in certain ways. There's loan programs that, again, go across the entire spectrum. You have your hand up, I'm sorry.
Yes. I guess my question is that when you get your scope of work and your company give the line items, in your project, do you disclose those numbers to your contractor?
Can you repeat the question for the recording, please?
So I want to make sure.
In other words, if your scope of work is 54,000 and you have all your line items for your trim, for your drywall, for your demo, do you disclose all those numbers, those line items to your contractor? Okay, and why?
I don't think he's providing that scope for you. The contractor is actually going to provide
Right.
that scope for you to provide to them.
Right.
So you're saying, hey, lender, I need this much work done and this is how much it's going to cost.
There's a borrower, hopefully, there's a borrower between the lender and the contractor.
Right. So in my experience, and I'm flipping, I would have a contractor walk through the property with me, and they give me a line item. And one of the toughest things that I've been going through since the hurricane is, they'll start with you, and then with the way that, because of what the hurricane has done to the city of Houston, sometimes you don't receive your permit till almost a month later.
Sure.
And so you have this contractor walk through the whole property with you and give you your line item scope of work to do. Then by the time you get your permit, they're going somewhere else. Because it's easy for them to run from you and run to the next house that's available for them like yesterday.
But what's your question?
So the question is, so I've had the experience of having contractors walk through and give me my line items, but by the time I get my permit, they're gone. And so when the new contractor comes along and they give you a quote and it's a little cheaper than the first quote you had, I kind of don't want to show them my scope of work. So I'm asking, should I?
You're talking about the contractor or the lender?
The contractor, not the lender.
I see what you're saying.
Because you're done with the lender. All you're doing is waiting for the permit to go through. And when you wait for the permit to go through, your contractor go on, move on somewhere else, and you call them back, say, hey, I got my permit, it's time for you to start. Then they say, well, I'm on 3 other projects, it's gonna take me another month before I can get to you. So you move on to a new contractor, and then the new contractor give you a lesser price and lesser line items. So I'm asking, should I disclose the first line item?
I wouldn't disclose it. Use that for your personal leverage to the next contractor. Now, you could say, these are the line items, but you're not giving them a price. This is what another guy gave me. It should just help you understand, what your sheetrock is costing, what your baseboards are costing, and cost average that way.
Now,
Exactly.
one thing though I will say, from a lending perspective, if you have a hard money loan on that while you're in that interim period, you provided your lender with a scope of work that was very specific. The appraisal was completed in both an as-is and a to-be-determined process. Your draw will be based on the original contract that you provided.
Right.
So that would mean in that case where, hey, good for you, you got less work or less cost into the property, you're not going to see that money until the final draw when the property is totally complete. Be aware of that, because that is a drawback a lot of people don't necessarily understand. You don't get to change the scope of work in the middle of the process with a hard money loan.
Yeah, because I made the mistake of letting one see mine, and then all of a sudden I had extra stuff to get done in my house.
Of course.
And then I had a problem.
Okay, last thing, Mike, before we move on to my favorite topic, which is property management. Talk about all the things that are happening on a national level, this Wall Street interest in the single-family asset class in the lending space.
Right, so you've seen a proliferation, that's a big word, I don't know if I can say it twice, of lenders that are in the business purpose lending only space that do permanent financing, as well as even in the what's called the non-QM, or the lenders that are regulated by Dodd-Frank have access to what's called non-QM. They still disclose the same way they would as if you were going to buy a loan on a conventional. But there is a lot of money that's been poured into programs where you can qualify for a house based on the debt service of the property. You can qualify for more than 10 properties using full doc without a limitation to the number of loans that are out there, provided that it works. You can do no ratio loans where it doesn't debt service. And think about, I go back to what AG was talking about. I don't know that would be a property he would be buying, but where your rent to ratio, your rent to price ratio isn't working at 1.4. But debt service programs, there's alternative programs. How many people in this room are self-employed? Just curious. How many people have applied for even a regular loan on their primary residence being self-employed and been turned down or told no because of your tax return? Right? Well, so you can use bank statements as alternatives. That's a program that's come back, and you can even use it for investment property lending. So the number of programs that now exist are immeasurable. I mean, it really is.
I'm gonna put up something from your site, which I was seeing the other day, which blew my mind.
Yep.
Which is this stat right here. It's a little small, but essentially
Which one are we talking about? Top left?
470 billion in investor loans that have been securitized. Is that over a year, over a few years? What is that?
That's in the last 12 months. That's
Oh my
right.
goodness.
So,
$470 billion of in the investor space alone.
absolutely. So some of my friends from First Franklin days are working for a company out of New York that just started in the non-QM space, and they thought their bank statement program, would be the biggest program. Their number one selling program is the investor debt service program. So investors, one of the reasons is because investors represent a large space in the business. And so there are more programs that are out there that will cater to you, to your specific situation, regardless. And you wouldn't even believe some of the things that are out there. But there are thousands of programs that now exist, depending upon your situation, which brings me to one last point. Patrick said it too. Goals, right? What is your goal? And you've had this conversation before. From cash flow to appreciation, your loan program can be tailored to things like that, whether it's cash flow that you're after or whether it's appreciation. So again, I'd encourage you, partner with your lender. Let them know what you're trying to accomplish. Let them be a part of that game plan and show you the different types of programs that exist.
Awesome, great point. All right, guys, we're drawing to a close, but I do want to spend some serious time because this is what will make or break you as a single-family landlord, which is property management. Okay. Now, I believe, are you guys still with Edgewater, Melissa?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So now that you've bought your property, you've fixed up your property, you've leased your property, now comes the fun part of managing that tenant. How many of you guys are intimidated or at least a little bewildered by that process? Oh my Lord, only 3 people here. But talk about that, Melissa. Some challenges, some practical tips, some processes that you guys have put together in property management.
So you need to decide, are you going to manage yourself or are you going to hire a management company? So you need to do your due diligence on both. Go out and interview some property management companies and see what that's going to look like. And then don't be afraid to manage, the property yourself. If you feel like you have the time and you feel like you're going to be someone who can handle that. I can tell you, depending on what class of properties you buy, the lower value houses are going to be a little bit more work to manage. You need to not be somebody who's going to be afraid to go talk to those tenants. It's not saying that all the tenants are bad, but you're going to have a percentage. It's a little bit tougher to get the rent out of them each month because they don't manage their money quite as well as other folks can. But
even Tom? I've heard stories of Tom showing up and taking the doors away.
No, not quite that bad. But yeah, it's just property management. I mean, you can manage them. It's not that big a deal. Just have your expectations. It's kind of like raising children. If you tell your tenant what you expect, they're either going to follow that expectation or they're not. Another thing that people are afraid of is eviction. Don't be afraid of eviction. They have eviction court, I think it's, different times. Find out when your local area has eviction court and go sit in it. It's very eye-opening. You can see the process.
Oh, yeah.
You can see what a landlord has to go through. Don't be afraid of it. It's very easy here in Texas that if they haven't paid their rent, you're gonna get possession. You're gonna win. It doesn't matter if they show up. Doesn't matter if they complain that you don't want to fix anything. All the excuses that they give, it's the same thing. These judges pretty much have it down. So don't be afraid of that process. Most people are a little afraid of that. Another thing I would say don't be afraid of is doing Section 8. A lot of people, shy away from that.
You may not tell them what is Section 8.
Section 8 is basically just a government program. They'll pay either all of the rent or a percentage of the tenant's rent. We don't do a lot of Section 8, but we do, I think we have maybe 5 or 6 out of, I think we manage somewhere around 75, 80 houses. It's not a big percentage, but that program can be very beneficial. You just have to learn the ins and outs, just like anything else. Once you get the system down, you can do very well with it.
Anything more, guys, that you guys want to share? Property management, any practical tips?
I'll just say the basic rules of construction is the golden rule. He who has the gold rules, don't pay early, don't pay for impartial work or incomplete work. And on the process of finding a good tenant, just find a good tenant. And you can do that. What's the forms you use?
Well, I manage all my properties now. I've been doing it for 5 years.
You do look like a mean rent collector, by the way.
Don't mess with
I-
it.
Exactly.
Don't mess with me because when they, normally I give them 3 days. After 3 days they haven't paid the rent, I send a letter, giving them 3 days.
Guys, listen to this very carefully. That's how you collect rent. If you, just like Melissa said, if you establish this process,
So
you
you give,
build that expectation, you won't have any
and,
problems. Sorry.
and they will give you a lot of stories why they haven't paid you. So I say, you just send the letter, 3 days. If they do no pay or anything, then you go to the court and file in the court. And then the process starts for them to be evicted. But sometimes it takes around 7, depends too, because we have one that it came to court and then we have to fight it. It took us almost a month to kick him out. So
National Tenant Network is a screening service we use every single time. And they're very impartial about that person's a good risk, that person's not a good risk, and we don't make an exception.
but when I do put my rent, I don't use realtor. Sometimes I use it, but not all the time. I just put my house for rent. But the people I screaming, I ask questions, the family, I look at the cars, I look at everything. And it gives me a lot of perspective of these people.
Mm-hmm.
So if something I don't like, I say, well, let me check, or. But I do check.
You don't want to be accused of breaking a rule or favoritism or bias or anything along those lines. National Tenant Network has a formula, and you're in the zone or you're not in the zone. And if you choose to allow folks that don't pass the test, then it's your fault that you have a problem later on.
And with property management, going into it, if you do have a day job, if you are working for someone and you do not have the time to manage those rents, manage the maintenance, do all that, that's basically what the property manager does for you. They collect your rents, they'll do all the construction that needs to be done for you on that house. They'll find tenants for you if needed. So they're basically a business within a business and taking care of a major portion of your business, and you don't have to deal with that headaches. The fees are very minimal. I mean, they usually charge $80 to $99 a door or something like that. And it's worth it. When you start getting 5 to 10 doors, you don't have time. Sylvia is the exception. She has a great process, a great system, and she's been a client of mine for over 5 years. And that was the first thing she said. I manage my own doors, and I make sure my rent's there. They make a ton of money off late fees, so don't shy away from those processes. Don't be afraid to evict. There's definitely a lot of benefits to come from property management.
And having a good software, if you're managing your own properties, is definitely beneficial. We use a product called Buildium. And Buildium, we automate all rent collection, late fee, leases. So it's very, very easy to manage, especially if it's a more than 10 portfolio. It's easier to manage those properties. Okay, so we were talking about the last point, which is risk. Now, there are many, many, many risks associated with being a landlord, in terms of disclosure, in terms of repairs, in terms of mold, whatnot. We won't go into that for a second. Let's talk about the biggest risk that we face, which is how do we mitigate that risk by having the right insurance products in place.
Right.
So talk a little bit about what are some of the stories that you've seen of landlords what are the areas of exposure for the landlord, and how do they insure themselves against those risks?
This is good sleeping material, guys. Insurance, asset protection, we preach it over and over. Some of the biggest mistakes I see investors make, landlords make, first is hire the wrong insurance agent. Okay, you think you can go to your farmer's agent and say, hey, I'm doing rehab on this property. They're not going to probe, they're not going to ask the right questions. Well, hey, what type of construction are you doing? Is it cosmetic, or are you doing roofing? You now need a builder's risk policy. It's not just a dwelling fire. If you misclassify and you insure the property incorrectly and you do have a claim, they will deny your claim. Okay, so ignorance is bliss in that sense. You can't, well, I didn't know. You need to have an agent that does know about real estate, that is in real estate, that knows every type of policy for every type of transaction, so that you don't miss out and are misclassified and not covered. So that's the first area that I see on the real estate side. Second area is that you may be acting as a contractor, okay, and not have the proper liability insurance. You think, oh, well, I'm just hiring this guy to do this, this, and that. Well, if this guy falls off your roof and now he's suing you for all your personal assets, what was the reason for buying that property? To make money, not to give it to a guy that got injured. So if you are acting as a contractor, you need general contractor liability in place. That is huge. It's only about $1,500 a year. It's based on your gross annual sales minus materials, so whatever you think the house is valued at. It's just worth it to have to protect your assets. Another issue is, as you grow as an investor, you have all these properties under your personal name. Now you're at risk for liability, whereas you could have deeded it into an LLC, like Patrick and Sylvia do.
Or a trust.
Or a trust. It's a second line of defense, so that these people can't go after your personal assets in the event of a lawsuit. To say, I just had an investor who's being sued for $5 million because it was an obvious drug deal and he got shot in the chest, and he's suing the landlord for improper lighting and is going to win because he couldn't see who was at his door. Okay? Now, how silly does that sound? Well, the insurance company says, you know what? To fight this thing for 5 years is going to cost us about $3 million. So let's just go ahead and give them $1 million and let them go away. Okay? So that those types of things affect your rates. Okay? Making sure you're properly covered. And then making sure you have I guess the biggest part of going into your first deal is having the proper coverage. Do you want replacement costs? Do you want actual cash value? If it's a $40,000 house and you don't have much into it, actual cash value is fine. Replacement cost is necessary for deals that you have $100,000 or more invested in. Okay, having low deductibles. Obviously we have weather patterns here that affect us. Hurricane Harvey, all these floods. Low deductibles is key. You don't want to be an investor that files claims for, hey, I got a little water damage, I need to file it. You want worst case scenario situations. And when that does happen, you want your deductible to be low so that you're not coming out of pocket. Okay? Making sure you have the right coverage, making sure your deductibles are low, and making sure that you are classifying these properties and projects correctly so that you are covered and your assets are protected. Any questions on that?
Oh, that's Benchmark right there on your screen. Great resource. And
wrong website.
wrong website?
Yeah. Benchmark Broker.
Oh my lord.
It look good though. It look good.
There's something Hayden left off. The reason we went over with him, besides saving a couple dollars per home, was when we have a home that's empty, you don't have to run out and get the extra, in our case, $500 to get coverage. That was just money out the window. And it's coincidental, but that same home that brought us there is currently between renters again. It's going on the second month and not being rented.
Right.
We'd be paying $500 for interim insurance policy just to cover that interim. It's crazy. And
so we found ways to bundle all your properties onto one package to make it easy to do business. It's a 3-in-1 package policy, so you don't have to keep canceling and starting new policies and wasting money, wasting premium as you go. And another thing is, you're never going to find out the true color of an insurance carrier until the disaster hits. But it's also having the right agent that's going to walk you through that process. Patrick can attest to, he had a tree fall on a roof.
What is it that hurricanes and Christmas have in common?
Santa Claus?
You get a tree in your living room.
Very true. So he had a tree in his living room, and most agents are going to hand you a 1-800 number and basically tell you good luck. Okay? That's not where it stopped for us. We were around for Hurricane Ike, and we didn't really have that service that we offer now, and basically we go the extra mile. We'll provide you an estimate, a detailed line item estimate, to make sure that when that adjuster comes, you know what they're paying you as opposed to what are you going to give me. And that worked for him, and that worked for all our clients. So having the right agent, having somebody with real estate knowledge, making sure they have a claims process in place to protect you. It's almost like a personal guarantee, just being with that agency. You know, I'm not saying that we're the only one. Obviously, there's a lot of agents out there. There's a lot of products and, you know, good agencies that offer great service. But what we do is cater to investors like yourself, and we tend to grow that way. So.
Let's hate him with hair.
Yeah, that was the better looking me.
Is it really you?
No. Photoshop. Yes, ma'am.
Hayden, did you say that, I don't think you mentioned it, but a house with a tenant and a house without a tenant, the premium is different when you're getting that insurance?
Correct.
To fix up the place?
Correct. So when you say fix up, you're doing remodel, right?
Yeah, if you're doing remodel, but you have a tenant inside, and
Right.
it happens to be an area where they can still live, do whatever
Right.
they're doing. So the premium is different whether or not you have a tenant inside?
Correct. On the individual side, you know, builder's risk costs a little bit less than a vacant. And then both of, you know, a dwelling fire is going to be less than both of those. Because someone's living there, the insurance company sees it as, it's, you know, it's less likely to have a fire or total loss, right? What we developed is a product that allows you to have all three in one at the same price. So if you are doing remodel like he was doing, or you know, in the process of being vacant because the tree did fall on the roof, you know, it's a 3-in-1 package. And then when you do have a tenant in place, it acts as a landlord policy at the same cost. So yeah, most agencies will give you 3 different policies. We're going to give you one.
And you mentioned that you do both residential and commercial?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we do all property.
And these guys are very good at monitoring the premiums too. I got a call from Jennifer. She
Yes.
actually found something for us.
Always working.
Yep. Thank you for that. Okay, guys, questions? Go ahead. Let me grab the mic. So guys, we have about 5 minutes, and do not leave because I have 50 tickets to give away for the Powerball. Are you sure it's tonight? Mike, are you sure the drawing is tonight?
I'm sorry. I was asking an insurance question.
Powerball drawing is tonight, you sure about that? I thought it was Friday.
When I bought the ticket, she said it was tonight. She said there was one tonight and one Friday. I said, get the one for tonight.
We need the one
Let's
tonight.
make it interesting. Can't leave the room if you have the winning ticket, though.
How do you know? What time is the party?
9 o'clock, isn't it?
Woo! 5 minutes?
There we go.
Whoa!
Hey, can we put it online and watch it?
Okay, so before we ask the questions, guys, can all of you guys get up, please? Can all of you guys get up? Okay. Now, underneath, there are 50 seats in there. Underneath your seats, randomly, there's a lottery ticket. So I would recommend just lifting up your seat slightly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Look at your seat, honey.
Hey, G,
I was gonna sit there. Save that for you.
Oh, that's my man.
Show up here in the front. Everybody, man. Whoa, it's cheating, man.
5 ways.
Just if any one of us wins, we share it 5 ways.
Okay, agreed.
All set? You guys got your tickets? Okay, can I see the tickets? Now the deal is, if you guys win,
Cash values on it.
50% for the house.
That's recorded. That's recorded.
It's recorded. Now, a one-time offer, guys. Seriously, sit up. One-time offer. Can you raise up your tickets? Would you be willing to combine this into a large kitty?
A pool?
A large pool. Anyone who wants to vouch out of that? You want to be out of that?
No, I'm joining.
Okay. Anyone who's against the idea of doing this a pool?
Our odds of winning are actually not better when we pull this.
Oh, yeah, we're in.
Yes, we're in.
Bull or no bull? Bull, okay. Take this camera around and get these suckers. Make sure.
Can't have family members joining after we win, right?
Okay, but yeah, that's a good idea, okay. So I don't have a ticket, but you guys do, okay.
Okay, my question is for Melissa. Melissa, you and
Okay, let's grab our seats. Now that you've gotten your tickets, don't leave. 5 minutes to the drawing. We should actually pull the drawing there. That looks freaking crazy, man. That's what he wins in this room.
That would be awesome.
A night to remember.
A night to remember.
Instant investor.
Question, sir.
So, Melissa, we work in the same area as far as real estate stuff, and going back to Section 8, it's my understanding that you basically have to wait for somebody who is in the Section 8 to come to your residence and want to rent it. Do you have any tips to finding where some of those Section 8 folks are that are looking for homes?
Are you in the Texas City, Lamarck area?
Yes, in Galveston. And when I called the Galveston County office to ask them, I'm like, you basically have to wait for somebody to say, I want to rent your house, and then go through that process.
Right. And you can put that in your ad. So if you do any advertisement, you can let them know. I know there's a little bit, you can maybe talk, I know there's the Galveston Section 8 program, and then there's the Texas City Section 8 program. So you can talk to them, let them know that you have things available. There's also, I think, a Section 8 website. Go Section 8. You can go in there and I believe put in your information, and you can, try to get individuals off that as well.
Thank you.
By the way, Go Section 8 publishes a zip code report of where they're paying the most. If you're planning on going the Section 8 route, it's a good report to look at. Which zip codes pay more? Okay, any more questions, guys? Yes, sir.
Just real quick,
Can I have a mic, sir? Oh, did you have a question?
I can just ask them, it's kind of...
Personal? Okay.
Well, mine's real short. Basically, I'm wondering, we've covered everything in single-family homes, but when you get into condos, does that change?
Great question.
Since it's a deeded property?
Great question.
It'll change from a lending perspective a lot, because you have warrantable and non-warrantable condos to start with, right? And the process or understanding what's warrantable versus not is going to be related to owner occupancy, going to be related to whether or not the HOA is solvent, whether or not they're in litigation, all types of different things. I would say condos are probably not, it's doable, right? But it's not, when you call a lender, it's
more
not
complicated
the favorite thing to do, right? But they do exist. And non-warrantable condos is part of that non-QM process, right? A lot of loan programs have come in for non-warrantable condos, a little easier process to get through. What you have to understand though, easier process to get through, different loan program, probably higher costs and higher rates. So just be prepared for that.
Got it.
Okay, guys, a few things to wrap up before we're in the evening. Some of you may have gotten this flyer about the construction apprentice program when you walked into the site. If you did not, look at Mr. Thomas, Joseph Thomas in the back. He's your construction dude in town. If you guys have any questions or have any interest in joining an apprentice program that actually walks you through an actual construction project from beginning to an end, that's the guy to talk to. So it's great to learn about a construction at a boot camp. It's a different thing to walk into a construction site and be involved in building a home from ground up to the actual stage that you hand the keys to the homeowner. He looks like a construction guy, doesn't he? He's like ex-army and all that good stuff. But great resource. Any questions on this program? And the actual apprentice program is extremely affordable. Great information, great value that's offered in the program. So Thomas is your resource to talk about that. Okay, so before we wrap up the evening, Any final questions for the panelists? Did they do a great job, guys? Each and every one of this panel, guys, is extremely successful in their own right. So I appreciate you guys for taking the time. Thank you so much. I know coming out, meeting your families, talking to these guys was not that easy, but thank you for pouring your hearts out. Thank you so much for sharing the information. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy yourself. And go and get some rentals. Come on.